If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, the leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple. Let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes.
Can you see that? No, you can't see that.
First, of course, the leader needs the guts to stand alone.
No, I can't.
You cannot see it. Why can't you see that? Nobody can
But
see.
I can hear perfectly.
You can hear it. but you
Yes.
can't see it. So let's see.
I don't know.
Let's see if I can figure out how to get you.
He's a good ball.
Okay. Let's see if I can figure out how to get you. Give me a second, I'm trying to see if I can get this.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes. Let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes.
All right, now let's see if this works.
Ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He probably shows everyone else how to follow. Notice the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms.
I don't know how to do this. So you guys are gonna get to come up here and watch this over for you.
Okay.
So low tech, everybody coming up. We do this low tech for you.
It's proof the first has done.
Okay.
Now it's not a
So here, you get to watch this. I want you to come on over here.
A movement must be.
Here you go. You get to watch that.
Come on up.
Come on up.
We've learned a lot about leadership followers because let's watch
Oh, I
the
watched
movement
this.
start to finish in under 3 minutes. 2 more people set 3 months immediately. First, of course, the leader needs to stand at the tipping point. We have what he's doing is so simple. People jump in. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. The leader is the flint. The first follower is the spark that really makes it work. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not 2 nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If you were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. But for the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'll be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is over. is it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, and that would be really effective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join.
So that is change. So that is change.
Not expecting that video.
What?
I said I have to admit I was not expecting the video.
So that really is kind of the paradigm for change. Is what your leaders need to do is generate those first followers. And that's what the early wins are. And that's what's signaling out the influencers and gaining their support. That steering committee that Cotter talks about, all of that is how you drive change. So, all right, let's go back to where we were. Here's how you create urgency. Okay, this is, obviously you could create a crisis or share a crisis. I don't know about creating one, but we talk about eliminating obvious examples of excess again, and I go beyond excess. You go right down to the nice to haves. You get rid of all the nice to haves in the organization, and again, it's temporary, but it sends a message. This is serious. We need to take this seriously. Set goals so high that they can't be reached by conducting business as usual. Change performance measures from narrow functional to broad measures. Send more data about weak customer satisfaction, weak financial. Again, the reasons you need change, share. I mean, a lot of this is just transparency. Creating the message. Insist that people talk to customers, and hear what the customers are saying. Use consultants to gain relevant data. I view consultants as useful sometimes, but again, too many consultants, you bring them in, that really sends the wrong message to the people. Stop happy talk, have honest conversations, and bombard people with information on future opportunities. In other words, that vision. I mean, ultimately, the last one has to go along with whatever else you're doing to create that sense of crisis there, that urgency. Okay, I'm going to have you guys do a breakout. Let's see. Let me see if we can have Vanessa participate in this. So. Easier. There you are. All right, you can participate in this. Vanessa, can you hear me? Got a picture up there. She ditched. Are you there still, Vanessa? Let's see if you.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we're gonna do a breakout. I'm gonna have you. You guys can come up and sit in my seat. You two and you two will be the other breakout group. Here's the breakout. Identify a current change in one of your organizations. The more controversial, the better. Discuss how change leaders can create a sense of urgency around that change, and would the same messaging resonate with all stakeholders? And then how would you message it? I would add that. How would you message that crisis or sense of urgency? So you two can come up here and share, or I'll just turn Vanessa around. She can share with you guys there. You see your team there, Vanessa?
Hi. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Sorry for being in Zoom.
All right.
Does someone wants to start?
What?
Do you want to start? I cannot read the question, so
Okay, so the first one is identify a current change in one of your organizations. The more controversial the change, the better.
You can give her the slide if we want. Okay, we'll share.
do you have any example of a controversial in your company? Actually, I have one right now if you want me to share. So actually, it's not a change, but they have today like told us that we have to freeze everything, including like all the budget that we have. So no more cultural events, no training.
Yeah.
So all the budget and everything that has to do with budget and finance is froze. So now we have to, it's being, so it was downloaded today, but I know it's going to be super controversial because people already have on the budget, they have events, they have hiring, they have the headcount, and today and tomorrow we have to say everyone, hey, nothing that you have planned is going to happen. So we're going to stop everything. So that's my example. I don't know if someone of you have one example.
I mean, I just have my organization, that same change I've been talking about, like the merging. I mean, it's getting to a point where it's getting a little controversial because they're changing, like right now, we're actually having to move our space by the end of the month. With no reason why, like our responsibilities are still the same, like we're still all working together and they're kind of splitting us up. And so one of our coworkers is actually going to a whole different building, so it's gonna be complicated. And we don't have any like reasoning behind why we're moving before we even have transitioned job duties to what we're supposed to do. So we have like a lot of resistance already to this. I mean, I know my team is just like, why are we moving? Well, there's no reason. I don't know what would like the urgency be with that, because I mean, it's kind of like they said their EVP who's taking over, she like doesn't like our space, or she doesn't want a third office. So we're not really getting like good reasons, I guess. I don't know if that can be one.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of having a hard time trying to find something controversial. I mean, I could think of, maybe it's a bad example, but I remember being like a part of a team in like corporate sales where my manager, like the leader of the team, my supervisor, was moved to a different department. And I remember that was, difficult because we didn't like see the incentive behind that. Why like the leader who was doing so well in our department had to go to a different department. And I mean, yeah, it seemed like that there wasn't like a sense of urgency. Like we didn't understand why that change had to happen, or why it was beneficial, more beneficial than just keeping things the way they were. So yeah, I guess that's kind of, what came up to
I
mind.
love your examples. And also another example that could be is how every company is making all the employees to go to the office instead of having a hybrid model,
Yeah.
or leaving people work from home, because actually it's good. So I really love those changes. I really love your idea. So I will stay with one of yours.
I think that's, I mean, the back to office, I know Nita talked about that last week. Her company's dealing with that. And it's like, I guess the third question is, would the same messaging resonate with all stakeholders? And I think that's kind of hard when you do that
Yeah.
return to office, because some people may want to go back like for personal reasons, and other people will just be like, I'm working fine from home. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's like a good change example that's really current. And it's, I think the way you create, with all of our examples, the way you create that sense of urgency is transparency.
Yeah.
Like you just have to continue like talking to your people so they understand why these changes are happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think there has to be like some common ground in the message that you're, communicating, but you also kind of have to adjust it to your target audience, like depending on who you're talking to. So kind of framing the message in a way that presents an opportunity or a challenge to the change instead of a threat.
Yeah.
Totally. And you know why? To really explain to people why this is important for the strategy of the business. Because if we're thinking to go be a tech company, be flexible, be dynamic, it's like this is contrary of what you're saying. So it has to be aligned with your like speech everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And I think you're so right. Transparency is like the key. I mean, there's no amount of like communication unless you're actually talking about the reasoning behind it and like
Yeah.
why you're doing something. And I think you're never going to like, your message is never going to resonate with everybody, but I think you have to tailor it to certain groups so that they understand in a different way. Like, I know for our overall change, there's a lot of people, like for me, I was very like not change resistant, like I was open to it.
Mhm.
And there's like half of my team's open to it, half of my team isn't. I mean, it's just 4 of us, so it's like 2 and 2. And it's the messaging for like me and my other coworker would be different from the people that are actually like innately more change resistant.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So I think it's tailoring your messaging
Mhm.
to that. Yeah.
I just thought there might also be, like with the transparency, and kind of the, there has to be kind of the same core in the message, depending on who you're talking to, just to ensure that like, if, different audiences talk, and kind of share what they heard,
That's true, yeah.
like they're like part of the story, it has to be, there can't be like a misunderstanding, based on what people heard, or like you can't sell it, just on like solely like what they would want to hear, it just has to be honest, transparent, and yeah, but still, targeted to that audience.
Yeah.
I'm so aligned with you. And I would add, how can we leverage sense of urgency? Actually, I was thinking about how our managers, and this is like a top down, this cannot be HR. Like the sense of urgency has to come from the GM, like to the first level, and the first level like downloaded to the other one. Like the transparency, clear message, clear audience, but also like a top down. That's something that I was thinking. What do you think?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes with like I've noticed this with my aunt's organization. She works at NASDAQ. They actually publish something on their insider website, so all the employees have access to it.
Mhm.
And then it does go top down, and so that way, like sometimes it's almost like playing telephone. Like the message kind of gets lost as you're passing it through, but that overall communication kind of brings it together. So like you said, it's the core message, but then it's also coming through different levels. So I agree.
That's smart.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Do we have any other questions?
No, it was just identifying the change, discussing how to create a sense of urgency, and then would the same messaging resonate with all stakeholders? And I think we got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Or you're traveling, right?
Yes, I'm in Colombia right now.
Right.
Yes, I'm happy, and I'm with all my family, with my nieces, nephews.
Oh,
Awesome.
Yeah, I didn't open the camera like at the beginning because my nephew was here with me and he was like playing. But yes, I'm happy to be with the family again.
that's so nice. I went to Colombia 4 years ago. I just remember it was very hot. Like,
How we do, ready?
good, we're ready to
All
go.
right. You guys go first.
So we talked about 2 change initiatives. The first one was a firing of the whole marketing department, and then not the whole marketing department, the heads of the marketing department, so the CMO and like the director, and then everyone below kind of got dispersed into other teams, whether that was like creative or strategy. And I think for that, there was different like opinions because some people weren't so okay with the leadership, so they were actually kind of happy about the change, whereas other people had developed like more of a bond with the leader, and that was a bit of a resistance. But I think the way that they created a sense of urgency around that was just by really explaining why that was no longer needed, like why the leadership had to go and they had actually done something wrong. So it was more like from an ethical perspective, and people really understood that. And I think for the people who were very attached, like emotionally to their leaders, what they did is like they had the CEO come in and actually talk to those people like one-on-one and like understand their concerns and kind of try and integrate them into the new teams, give them benefits within that new team that maybe they wouldn't have had while being in the marketing department. So that's what I noticed.
Okay, that communication, that one-on-one communication certainly helped. Did you have a different one or were you?
I did.
Okay, go ahead.
So when I worked at BCG, my team was transitioning from using an internal software to using a software called ServiceNow. And I think the initiative initially failed because the leaders did not create a sense of urgency. So nobody was really proactive about it, and there was a lot of like resistance because people were like insecure about the jobs. Because not a lot of people in my team were like technologically skilled. So just stepping out of their comfort zones and having to try out a different software seemed too much. Especially because the company didn't formally announce that they'd have training initiatives to get all the employees accustomed to the new software. So yeah, like this messaging would not resonate well with all the stakeholders. And I think they did eventually find out that there was a lot of resistance. So then they officially had a few training programs, and they ran like a pilot for I think 2 months. Had both the softwares on simultaneously until employees were comfortable with the new software.
Okay, did that work? Did people embrace it or was there still resistance?
It did eventually work only because they ran like a pilot. So if people weren't able to adjust to ServiceNow, they could continue operating on the previous software. But it did take way longer than it would have had they established a sense of urgency early on.
Okay, great. What do you guys?
We all had a couple different ones, and we even brought up like the return to office change.
Okay, that's a good one.
And creating that sense of urgency. I know, like, bless you.
Thank you.
With Nita last week, she was talking a lot about like how they're just kind of saying, you have to come back, that's it. And it's actually like, you have to communicate and be transparent. I think with all of our situations, it was really the way you can create that urgency is being transparent about what the problem is. And for instance, like mine was our office switch that we're doing at the end of the month. Where there's no sense of urgency. It's kind of like, well, the EVP doesn't want to have 3 offices, or she doesn't want to come over there. And I'm just like, that's not really a reason that we're uplifting, you know, our space that we've been in. And I think, you know, the messaging, it's never like the same messaging sometimes may not resonate with all stakeholders, especially with the return to office. You know, some people may be very excited about it. And they don't need like the communication be tailored differently to them and then to the people who are extremely resistant. And in my situation, I think 2 of us are change ready and 2 of us are resistant to change. And it's just navigating how you communicate with each to better get us aligned.
So let me ask, what did you take from that little video about how we could get people to return to the office?
I think it takes people to follow. It takes the first wave of people to follow. And I think that actually resonated with me a lot with my situation, because I went from being very change ready to being kind of resistant because certain things weren't clear. And I kind of realized that if I get that transparency and if I kind of embody that change, maybe it can motivate other people to go along with it.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I mean, like nurturing the first followers and really like, you know, have them spread the positivity about the change and, you know, create the, you know, the vision for it.
Yeah, I think that the more I think about this return to office issue, which is everywhere really, and it's creating that initial followers, get them in and make people want to come in, because others feeling, you know, that they're missing out on something. You mean FOMO, you make it a FOMO thing, really, and you know, well, you don't have to be there, but you know,
You just gotta be there.
Exactly.
well, you gotta be there because this is what's going on, and we're having, some of it'll be fun, some of it'll be training, some of it'll be, you know, information that other people don't get, the transparency, some sharing, you know, look, we're gonna have our meetings where we share what's going on in the organization. They won't be virtual. I mean, you, to a certain extent, you have to make it uncomfortable for people to stay at home. Because one, you now, obviously, however much flexibility you want to have, that's great. But if you want people to be in 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 1 day a week. You got to make people who can't for not lawful, not legitimate reasons. You've got to make them uncomfortable. Otherwise, why would they come in? I like to make them uncomfortable in a positive way as opposed to a negative way. In other words, the FOMO is going to make them feel uncomfortable because they're missing out, as opposed to in a negative way. I just don't think I don't think negative motivation works. If you get to the point where you need negative motivation, you should fire the people because they're not, you're not going to motivate them by basically beating them up every day. You're just going to have a surly, unhappy employee. So fire them if they can't change or won't change. There are some people that they'll be better off elsewhere. You'll be better off without them. But beyond that, everybody else, I believe, should, you're better off to use positive motivations, have reasons why they're there, have things happen to people who are there, that are positive. And I think also you need to be honest with people that the people who are going to get promoted, I don't know how I haven't honed this message yet. The people who are going to get promoted are the people who are going to be in the office. I mean, again, they don't have to be in the office 5 days a week, but if you're never in the office, you're not going to get promoted, or at least your chance of getting promoted, because you're out of sight, out of mind. I don't get to know you. You don't get to know me. You're not there when emergencies happen, and therefore those are the things that get people noticed, and how you handle difficult situations. And you will get basically your job will become more mundane if people are in the office and you're not. And so how you get that message out there, it is difficult. I don't have an answer to that, to the extent that there's a gender difference in preferences to staying home. There are issues with that you have to deal with. So, this is not an easy issue, but it's an important one. And we need to think about how you do this in a both positive way and also one that comports with your culture. That is consistent with your culture. And finally, I am not 100% sure. We're going to have some guest speakers. Maybe they will help you better at this. But I am not 100% believer that over the long run, in organizations of any size, you can really create and maintain a culture all virtually. Now, I can be dead wrong about that. Companies that are really tech companies probably can, because they're going to be virtual anyway. But for most companies who just with the normal communication is different face-to-face than it is virtually, I don't know how you pass on a culture. Now, again, that just may be a sign of my ignorance and age that I can't see it, and maybe you guys can. And I actually look to people who have spent more time than I have online, to say, well, that's wrong. So, we will spend at least one class where we talk about how do you create a virtual culture? How do you deal with those situations? So I want you guys to think about that, because you're more likely to come up with an answer to that than I am. I can think of some things you can do, but I can't see it. I can't get my mind. How do you take somebody who's never been in the workforce and indoctrinate them into a culture where you only see them giving them tasks and online? They're never involved with a group on a daily basis. They don't get to watch. They don't get to absorb culture. I don't know. You've got to be mindful. We were able to do it a little bit during the pandemic. That's a short term, and most people had already been inculcated with the culture. When you start getting large groups of new people who never have. Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering, do you think culture can be created through short-term social interactions? Like maybe you guys work completely remotely, but you have like every 2 weeks, like a social meeting or some type of team meeting?
I don't know, you tell me. I don't know if you can. I really don't. I'm not as, look, I've been teaching now for, even before the pandemic, I was teaching online. So I have figured out how to be almost as effective, I think, online as I am in person. I don't know if you guys tell me, but, but that's different. I'm not building a culture with you guys. I'm teaching you something. I'm sharing information. You're sharing information back. It's not building a culture. So you tell me. Go on.
We actually had 2 or 3 new people start in February of 2020, so right before the pandemic. So they kind of got to see everybody, and then we all work remote. And from my end, like, because I'm also wondering, how can you do that, especially with larger organizations?
Yeah, especially larger
Yeah.
organizations.
Because we're a small organization, but it was still very difficult. And even now, like there's only one person who's remaining because we had so much turnover, but she has trouble grasping the culture and actually having that personal relationship with all of us. It's been able to develop since we've been in 2 days a week for the past year, but it's still not the same. So and I know we've tried like the Zoom meetings and stuff like that, and it was fine for the people that we worked in person before, but when you bring in other people, you can't get that feel. So I'm curious, I'm gonna think about it.
We have to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not an issue that's going away. I mean, the one thing that I think is absolutely clear is that we're going to be at best a hybrid organizations going forward. So, and you're going to be more dispersed. So there are going to be some people who are going to be virtual, no matter what the organization is. And so how do you do that? We have to be creative. We have to think about it. You have to use the stuff we're learning in this class, because it is change management, to figure out how do you create that sense of urgency? What are the tools you can use? How do you, impart values virtually? It's a real issue, and I think will be the make or break issue for a lot of companies, especially as they grow. Because again, if you're small enough, I think you can do it online. You just need a person once or twice. You can do it because you're spending so much time with just a few people. But as you get bigger, interactions are more sporadic. I just don't know. I don't know. But I'm looking for you guys to have the answer. So there you go. I should have that as a assignment in this class. Yeah, I will next semester. Which assignment that you've had so far do you not think is that valuable?
Sorry, one more time.
What?
I didn't catch that.
You just gave me a good idea. I am next semester going to have one of the assignments, see how do you build a culture virtually?
Yeah.
What's the strategy? What are the tools? You come up with a plan. And I think that's a great learning tool. I'll learn something. Hopefully I'll learn a lot. So we'll go crowdsourcing an idea. So the question was, what have I asked you to do this semester? You don't think that's that worthwhile? Think about it. You don't have to tell me now, because I'll replace that with this exercise, which I think will be very worthwhile. All right, so think about it and let me know what you think is not worthwhile. All right, competing commitment. Let's talk a little bit about that before we get discussed. How does the concept of competing commitment create resistance to change? How does the concept of competing commitment create resistance to change?
I think it makes it kind of difficult. I mean, because it's the person's internal, commitment that they have, and they may have not even realized it yet. So it's like, it's hard to manage that resistance to change, because it's like some people themselves don't even know what it is.
But it is the commitment only internal, competing commitment, or is it also kind of enhanced by external community, the way things are. You know, the various, well, I've got to do this, I don't have time to learn. The new software programs, I'm too busy doing X, Y, and Z. You know, so it's, I think that the answer is to avoid surprises. That if everything happens the way you say it's going to happen, you know, other than, you know, due to input, which is, I think, very important, engagement, I think that will help avoid the problem of competing commitment. So, and why do iconic practices stand in the way of cultural change? You know, this is kind of the, you know, I don't know that I use the iceberg metaphor for culture. I don't think I did. You know, I always thought that's a little tacky, but I'll use it now. That a lot of your culture is underneath the surface. It's not visible, but the parts that are visible are iconic practices, the things like that everybody does. This is how we do it here. That's very visible. And those are the things, because they're so visible, they become the symbols of, oh, that's our culture. You know, and therefore changing those is very difficult. And so how do you go about trying to change those you know, kind of iconic practices? Or how do you not go about it? What's the big mistake people make? And when they try to change practices? Yeah, Sarah.
Maybe doing it all at once and, you know, without any preparation, I think would be a wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, no sense of
Kind like
urgency.
easing into it and preparing them, you know, mentally, spiritually, emotionally for that change.
I think you hit it, you know, right on the nail, in the sense of, you can't, the surest way to create resistance to change is to tell people they've been doing it wrong. In other words, people who are, you know, your best people who've been loyal and believe in your purpose and buy into your culture, if they believe that you're telling them now, look, you've been doing, we need to change this because you guys have been doing it wrong all along. This is bad, it doesn't work. We need to change. Usually this is when you have new leadership. They're gonna resist that, because think about it. You're telling people they've spent 10, 20, 30 years of their life and they've wasted it on something that they believed in. Again, purpose, culture, that they thought they were doing a good thing for the organization, for the world, and now you're telling them we're doing it all wrong. That is the surest way to get that threat reaction that you know, you're saying I wasted my life. And people, cognitive dissonance tells us people are never going to buy into that. They're going to fight that as hard as they can. And so how can you deal with that? How can you deal with that? And this is, again, I think, the biggest mistake that you make. Go ahead, sir.
Maybe framing it in such a way like it's almost their idea, but not really, like making it a two-way conversation of how can we change our practice to fit this new purpose.
I think that's right. You know, two-way conversation is very important.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe like build off of what they've been doing, you know, like see that as a, you know, a learning process that was, you know, effective, and now they can use that to improve and get better.
I think that's kind of the key, is you can't tell them what they were doing. What you were doing was right. It was great. It's built to come to where we are. World's changed, this has changed, there's sense of urgency. Now we need to adjust that. Not because what you had, you know, we're not a great company, what you did is because because now we need to adjust to deal with competition, technology, whatever it is that's creating urgency. And we want to save what's made this company great. You know, our purpose is the same. Our values are the same. What we're doing is the same. How we do it, or whatever the change is, needs to be different in order for us to continue doing the great work we've been doing, you've been doing, that sort of messaging. So, all right. Any other questions, thoughts? As the class winds down.
I think I'm just taking transparency is just key with all of this.
Transparency is key.
Yeah.
All right, next week, we're having a guest speaker. She's in Portland, so this will not be a live class, it will be virtual. And the following week, we're also gonna have a guest speaker, but that'll be live, she'll be coming. They'll be talking about, technology, analytics, both of them will be sort of talking about similar things, but they will be sharing, the reason I'm bringing them both in, they will be sharing their own experiences with change. So you can, and they both have lots of experience, and they're both great. So everybody be here, be prepared with questions or whatever, and I think you'll enjoy the speakers. They're very practical. Okay, see you guys next week, virtually. I will.
Next week is virtual.
I will send you that, and as well as her bio.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That was a good class.
It's a great class.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Vanessa.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.